The final functionality that I'm looking to implement is having a almost like a list view rather than a board view here. And I've had a few realizations. First of all, I realized that I need to have some kind of toggle that will allow me to go between board view and list view. I also realized that I want to be able to store that toggle's value inside of the item itself, inside of the parent item. So I'm going to go ahead and add a value here called string view type is equal to board. That'll be the default value, but this can be list or any other types I might create in the future. And I've also come to a realization of something else that I'm sure many of you may have realized, is that I can store the color as an int to start off with. And I can just set this to like that. And then I won't even need this. Unfortunately, this has a huge downfall, which is that I have to lose all my data. This is kind of what I get for using an unfinished product to already start managing my items. But I'll go ahead and do that, and I'll be right back. Okay, I've gone ahead and resolved any issues that were happening. Just to quickly show you what I've done, I've created an integer right here that stores the color value. It stores it as an integer, and then I've created a getter and a setter. The get value gets the value as a color, and the set value sets the value from a color to an integer value. This makes the code also look much cleaner. Now that we've resolved that, I can go ahead and start looking at the list view implementation. I think I'm going to have a toggle up here on the top right corner, which will enable and disable the list view from board view. So let me go ahead and add that in, and then we can go on to the next steps. And there you go. So by default, it's in the board view type, as you can see right here in the database. But once I click the toggle, it turns to list. And then again, board, list. Now that I have that implemented, I need to make changes to the view depending on what the value is of this toggle. So let me go ahead and implement that. There you go. That was pretty simple. So all I did was I added a conditional. If the view type is equal to list, go ahead and display this widget. If not, it will go ahead and return this one right here, which is the normal board view. So if I just click this button, there you go. It's a list. It's not a list. Now I'll be switching some aspects depending on how many columns we have. For instance, if we have just one column, it should do a wrap where the items appear next to each other and then go to the next row and continue. If it's multiple columns, then it should go ahead and give me a list. So almost like a to-do list, and items would keep going down vertically. Let me go ahead and implement that, and I'll be right back. This is what I have so far. There's a simple card. I'm displaying the color on here for the left. So this is the list view. This is the board view. And I realized that it looks actually much nicer when you reduce the size a bit and you just keep it on the side. You can keep track of all your items. Let me go ahead and add a few more. So there, that gives a better idea. If I uncheck this, I can go ahead and view all the items here. I can also go ahead and move them around. Like so, turn it back on. I'd like to be able to edit which column the items are in from this view. And I'd also want to order the items by the column that they're in. So item 2 and item 4 should be on the top since they're in the backlog. And then we should have item 3, I believe. Then we should have hello world and then item 3. So let me go ahead and implement that and I'll be right back. Okay, I've gone ahead and implemented the new UI here. I have my individual items and I'm also displaying the due date and priority if that exists. I also added a drop down which allows you to change what column the item is in. So we can do done, for example, here, and then maybe this one can be in the backlog again. And I can easily switch between the board view and the list view. So you can see the items are here. And then if I switch it here, you see that the list view will also display those changes. I definitely think there's some room for improvement on the UI front, but I'm overall really happy with this. There's still one functionality that I want to add that I think is pretty cool. Let me go ahead and do that and I'll be right back. Okay, I just had some dinner and I wrapped up my implementation. So let me go and show you what I did. When you have multiple columns on a board, it makes sense to have a drop down where you select where you want the item to be. So we can move this item 2 into done. However, if you have a board like this one where there's only 2 columns, I don't need a drop down because I'm either moving it to the backlog or I'm moving it to done. So it's almost like a toggle. So what I've done is I've added these checkboxes, and what they basically allow me to do is move them between the 2 columns. Like I can go ahead and select 7 here, and you'll see that it's moved into the done column in the board view. And this gives us a really easy way to move them between the 2 columns. As you can see, they're all in the done column now, and then if I uncheck them all, they'll all go into the backlog again. I really like this implementation for 2 main reasons. I always wanted to have this to-do list type functionality in my application, and now I have that. So I can go ahead and put this onto the side and always have it on my desktop and view all the tasks that I have to complete. And the second reason is that I still stayed within the constraints of an item. In other words, this is still a board. It hasn't changed. The fundamental item is still the same. This concept of living in constraint is something that I've always liked to play around with. I wanted this to-do list functionality, and I wanted it to be here, and this is the perfect implementation where I can get the to-do list functionality without creating a separate item type. It's all just within the constraints that we defined before. The only difference is how we display it. I'm very proud of this implementation, and I'm sure that many of you are not as excited as I am. I think this is a good point to stop for today. There's definitely some UI updates I have to make and probably some code changes, but I think I'll go ahead and do that off camera. I do want to mention though that I would love your feedback on any new features that I should implement, or even a better name for this application, because I think task board is a little mundane. Going off the idea of having this task board that you can constantly look at and you can just keep on your desktop at all times, I noticed that there is a lot of unnecessary UI elements. So what I did was, when you reduce the width by a certain amount, it goes ahead and gets rid of all the UI elements that aren't needed. And now you can see that we have this minimal to-do list application up, and we can just keep it on the side of our screen at all times, and we can go and check off items and so on. Let me know what your thoughts on that are. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you all next time.